Hello and welcome back to my channel. So today I thought we would do a review of some of these card tools that you can get now. There's a lot of different styles and models out there that you can purchase, but this is one that I bought around Christmas time and it just came in the mail not that long ago. So I thought I would do a review and kind of test some of the tools and see how they hold up and if it's worthwhile to carry with you as an EDC for, say, a survival situation or something like that. So we'll take a look at these and what tools are on them and the quality. And if I get a chance, maybe not today, but another day, we'll use some of these and test them out. So let's take a look at the tools. So these are the tool cards, and this is how you'll get them. They're about the size of a credit card. The only thing is, I would say maybe this saw might be a little bit too big to fit in some of the slots. I'll test it out in my wallet and see how it actually fits. But you might have to pop this saw here off to get it to actually fit in some of those slots. My first impression, it's actually a little bit heavier duty than I thought it would be. It is very light, but I was worried it might be more of a really flimsy kind of aluminum quality, and it does have some flex to it, especially right now because I haven't popped these off yet. But if you actually look at each of the different pieces here, they are somewhat flexible, but they're heavier duty than I thought. I tried to find out what steel they're made of, and the only information I could find was that it's a stainless steel, but I couldn't figure out what steel type, so unfortunately I can't tell you guys that. Some of the other brands might have more information on that, and this was a cheaper a tool set. I paid $7.29 Canadian for this 2-pack. So really that works out to $3.65 for each tool. For that price, I figured even if the quality is poor, then I haven't wasted a lot of money on them. But if they turn out to actually be somewhat usable in a survival situation, then they're worth the money that I spent on them. So it is better quality than I thought. They're not quite as flimsy as I was worried they might be. I might try and half these on to like a handle kind of thing and then test them out and see how they do. Or I might just try using them by hand, because in a survival situation, that's probably what you're going to do. You might not have time to make or haft them onto a handle. So, but we'll test them out on a different day. We'll test each of the different tools out and see how they hold up. But for right now, we'll go over the tools that are on here. This is a 22-piece card. So there's 22 tools on here, and this one I've already broken all of the tools off so we can take a look at them. So, like I was showing you before, there's a saw on here, and it has this side here with the larger teeth on it, and then it has a second side, which I don't know if you guys can see, but it actually has some finer teeth on there. So you've got two saws on this one piece. So that's one tool there. I think they actually list that as just one tool, even though there's two different saws on there. And then you've got a second saw here. This one's slightly curved, has one serrated edge on here. More of a fine tooth kind of thing, about the same, maybe a little bit larger teeth and spacing than this fine-sided one. No, actually I'd say, yeah, they're about the same as the fine side of this saw, except that this one's a curved and smaller saw. So you get two of them on that tool. So that's two of the tools we have there. And then we have this trident. So you would fold that up, and the metal is flexible, but it takes a little bit of work to bend. So I have a feeling once that's bent into place, it's pretty much good to go. And if you try and bend it back, it might snap, I fear. Right in here, I can feel, I think it might be too weak. If you play with it too much, it might actually snap and break. So it's not like a super quality steel kind of thing. And for the money you're spending on it, I wouldn't expect that either. But it's not aluminum, it's a stainless steel, so that's actually impressive. I'm impressed with that. Then you've got this one here, which you could haft onto an arrow and use it probably for small game, or you could haft it onto like a spear and use it to spear fish, or say frogs if you're frog hunting or something like that. So that's got a couple different uses for it, I think. I've never used one of these, so we might have that onto the end of an arrow and test it out, do some target practice, or like I said, maybe use it for maybe spear fishing kind of thing, maybe get some frogs. And it also comes with this nice arrowhead, and it's actually decently sharp. It's like there's not a lot of flex to it. It seems pretty stable, pretty sturdy. So I have a bow that I made at the Frostbite Winter Camp Symposium, just a quick survival bow kind of thing, nothing fancy. So I might half this onto an arrow and test it out with that bow and see how it holds up. So I mean, you know, for $3.65, which is what each of these cards would have cost, if I get a usable arrow, even if you only get a couple of uses out of it, then it's, in my mind, it would be worth it, especially in a survival situation, right? So there's an arrowhead, you got this little spear point, you've got a trident, the two saws so far, and then we've got a couple of other small tools here. This one is an awl, and I use awls quite often in leather work and such. You could also use it, I believe, as like a little hand drill to drill into, maybe bore into some wood, something like that. So that's got a couple different uses. This piece here, which I couldn't figure out what it was at first, and it's actually a set of tweezers. So if you fold it in half, which these are actually harder to fold than I thought they'd be. Yeah, so you fold it in half and you have a mini set of tweezers. And actually the spring on them is pretty good. You don't have to worry about like pinching it closed and then you've pretty much used it once and the spring is gone. Like they're a little bit stiff right now actually, and I have weak hands, so that's probably not helping. But I could definitely see using those to pull out a splinter. They've got decent spring on them. They're pretty small, so it's kind of hard to show there. But yeah, so I'll test those out when if I get a splinter here next time I'm out in the bush, and I might just throw that into one of my first aid kits and have some tweezers. So that's kind of handy. Then you've got these 4 items here, which I think have multiple uses. They look like they could either be used for like locks, like snare locks kind of thing, or maybe fishing lures, and possibly both. I don't know if that's what they're intended for. The list of the tools, it showed some of them in use, but it didn't really go into a lot of detail on how to use each of them and what each of them was for. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that these are either for fishing lures or snare locks, and I'm sure they'd work for both. There might even be more uses than that for these, possibly signaling, although they're pretty small, but it's a possibility. So there's those, and because of all of these fishing hooks, that's one of the reasons I'm thinking that you could use them for fishing lures. So there's quite a few different fishing hooks on here, which is good because you might lose, if you're like me, you probably will lose a few hooks. And there's 2 different styles. So you've got the double fish hook here, which is nice. And when I seen the picture of them before I bought them, I was worried because they look really thin and just like they would bend or break really easily. But actually, I've put quite a bit of pressure on these. Like, they're not actually bending. I don't know if you can see that because they're so small. It's hard to show you. But that steel seems quite sturdy, actually. They are very small. I wouldn't probably use them on anything particularly big. They do have slight barbing on here, so please research your fishing regulations in your area. I have to check mine out and just see. It's been a while since I've gotten a fishing license here, but I know in most areas you can't actually use barbed fishing hooks, so I might not be able to use these in my area. I'll have to do some research on the fishing regulations here. Both the double and the single hooks are barbed, so again, I will have to check into that before I use these. But they're actually fairly heavy duty. I'm pretty impressed with that, so I will test them out at some point in time this year. I might have to go somewhere else and see where barbed hooks are allowed. Then you've got your single hooks. So you've got 5 of the double hooks, and then you've got 4 single fishing hooks as well. And I am impressed. They're a lot heavier duty than they look. So we'll see how they actually hold up. But again, I wouldn't use them on any larger fish. Then you've got these 2 needles. They're very small, but quite sharp and pointed. Nice large eyes on them, so they should be easy enough to thread. And yeah, I think they'd be useful. Like I said, I do a lot of leather working and things like that. even when I'm out in the bush sometimes. So having an awl and needles for me is useful, maybe not for everybody, but I can definitely think of a few situations where I might use those. And again, this is more of an EDC survival tool kind of thing. So if you're in the bush and you've got nothing else, I mean, even if it's not the highest quality tools, you have something to help you survive. So I'd really like to test them out and see how they actually hold up. You know, I mean, if you only get one use out of them, I guess that's better than nothing, but I'd like to see if they can hold up to multiple uses. So I think we've gone over each of the different tools here already. They do pop off fairly well off of these cards. The only thing is there's a couple tools like this awl here where I had to use snips because it just didn't want to quite break off, and it was leaving a lot of little tabs here. So I did cut them off a little bit clean, just to tidy them up so that they wouldn't catch on anything like that. So that's about my only complaint. Like I said, the steel quality is better than I thought it would be. And so that's it for this part of the video. Size-wise, I guess I should compare them to an actual credit card one of these days here. I might do that on the next section of the video, but this is about, let's get to the end here. I would say a little bit less, about 3 3/4 of an inch long, and a little bit over 2 inches wide. So I'll have to check and see if that's going to fit into one of those slots in my wallet. So in the next section here, we will actually haft some of these onto some handles and arrows and shafts and things like that and test them out. And the fishing items, I'll have to wait a little bit later. I don't have a fishing license right now, and I'll have to look up some regulations and such before I use any of these. So we'll get to that in the next section of the video.